save on the home screen or whatever.
All right.
Yeah,
Let's
go.
Here we go.
Okay.
This is Apologetics Live with Matt Slick and Andrew Rappaport, part of the Christian podcast community.
Hey, Matt, you know what's really good for me to remember to do?
What's that?
Hit save on the link for where people can join us.
Well, you know what? I'm working on it right now on Apologetics Live.
Oh, I just added the link now. So folks, if you want to join us, yeah. If you would like to join us, you could go to apologeticslive.com. The link to join is there. We are live. We answer whatever your theological questions, anything about God and the Bible. If Matt doesn't know the answer, he just fakes it. Yeah,
that's true. It is true. I just fake it.
What's going on behind you today, Matt? There's a lot of activity behind you.
What's going on behind me? Well, as many of you will know, I'm moving, and I got to move in basically 4 weeks at the beginning of May, and my back has been out, and so we got Cameron back behind me, and he is a friend of mine, and he goes, "Hey, I'll help you pack," and he came over. And this morning I was using a cane to get around. I have a deformed bone in my back. And 3 days ago, I picked out 2 little socks. And my back went out just like that. You guys know how that happens. In fact, Nathan said that he reached in his truck. He reached over to get something, and boom, there goes his neck. So that was a week ago. And, it happens.
Well, I like the way that, that Cameron is packing up. I see him putting one book in your box and then one he puts under his shirt there.
He says you're putting one book in your box and one book in mine.
Yeah, it was funny when Nathan and Matt got together because they both started talking, and from my point of view, it was like, "Hey, Bershay, this is acting up. Oh, how's yours doing? Oh, my neck's feeling awful. How's that?"
That's pretty good.
Getting old.
Getting old. So he took a day off from work actually to come over and help out. How about that? And Nathan was here. We got the couches out. We got a bunch of stuff we took to the dump. So moving stuff. We starting the process now.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're doing. He said he's a dynamo.
Yeah. At this rate, he's going to have that whole office cleared out. Which books is he showing you now?
This is The Secret History of Andrew Rappaport. Wow. An eyewitness account of the rise of Mormonism. I don't know if it's good. People give me books and I don't even know if they're any good or not. Well, and then I got to write, we have a code thing. I got to write on this one.
Tell Cameron to make sure to ship all those over to me. I'll give you my
address. Why don't you just do it?
Yeah. Cameron, I'll text him now what my address is so he could just ship those over to me.
Oh, he wants you to ship my books over to there. What's it? This is all that book? This is LDS?
So
it's those 2. I'll just say 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay.
It's going to be trying to, and actually it's getting closer and closer.
What is? Moving?
Move. Isn't that like next month?
Actually, next month. It's the April, the last Wednesday of April. The pods will be here, and we'll just start loading stuff up. And and stuff. I'm going to have to ask a lot of help from people because my back's been acting up now for a while, and I'm the kind of guy, as most of us are, when we set our minds on something, we work until we drop, and so it's really been difficult for me to watch these guys do my work, and
but it is entertaining. I watched you get up out of your chair, or tried to get up, slowly, and it is entertaining. I mean, I'm not at the point, Matt, where I need a cane to walk around like you.
No, and you don't have a formed fourth lumbar vertebra.
No, you're deformed in more than just your lumbar there, buddy.
No, it's a birth defect. And the doctor said I'd be having trouble later in life, and here we are.
Plenty of birth defects. All right. So
that's what's bothering me most right now, though.
So
okay, so we can have people on. We can talk. Cat's here. Charlie's here.
In here, for the folks who are watching live, if you want to join, just go to apologeticslive.com And once you get there, there's a link to watch there, or you could just watch it from there. But there's also a link to participate there. And so that is where you want to go to join. Now, Matt, I will say we had a couple of things. We might have someone come in that wants to start a debate podcast. I told him about our show, and he thought it was interesting, so he may come in. He
wants to start a debate podcast.
He wants
Was he Christian, atheist, what?
I think he's a Christian. I don't know him personally, so but
wait, he wants to come in here and take over and do debates?
No. He wants to start his own
debate podcast system. Okay.
And so he was asking questions of how to do that, and I mentioned the show here. So he may come in, and someone else that I hope will come in is I was down in Florida this week, and I got together with my brother-in-law's family and got to talk with a young lady. She's, I want to say 16, 17, 18, somewhere in that that range. And she is the captain of her high school debate team.
Ooh.
And so I said, well, come on in. And, cause she said that, she's always trying to prep for debate. I said, well, we will disagree on many of the issues. She actually argued for lowering the voting age to 16. And her arguments actually made it to, I guess that they're actually taking her arguments and using them in discussion right now in Congress. And so we ended up.
Yeah, but the frontal lobes of 16-year-olds are not fully developed. They're actually technically not full humans yet.
That's what her aunt said. So her aunt is a science teacher in high school, I believe. And she, so we ended up talking about gun control. Obviously, I was outnumbered. We all know the position I take on gun control. I kind of am for these nice beauties. But
yeah. I'd love to debate gun control with people.
Yeah. So we did that. Then we got into a very extensive discussion on creation versus evolution. Here was the thing that got me, Matt, is the amount of gaslighting that goes on in our public school systems to where people believe that what they're taught, and because they hear it so often, they think that is the only possible right way of thinking.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
You did something with your microphone. You changed it.
Yeah, so that, well, I'll tell you what, I'll put my microphone back on this so you guys can hear me. Oh, you can hear?
I'm just like a few seconds delayed.
Oh, okay, good. No problem then. Okay. I'll put it back where it was.
So, so we ended up, it was interesting because the science teacher told me she didn't know there was anyone that, she only says she deals with homeschool moms, and she didn't hear anyone actually give good arguments.
Arguments for what?
For creation.
Oh, okay.
And against evolution. And yet, here's the thing I find is so many of them argue, they argue for adaptation and speciation, something that we would agree with and see in scriptures being of the same kind, as the same kind of family, animal family per se. That's something we all agree on. But what they do is a bait and switch. They talk about special evolution. Right. And they define evolution as just change. Well, everything changes. I mean, you a few years ago didn't need a cane to walk around. You've changed.
Yeah, no, I'm evolving.
Yeah, that would be evolution. But
that'd be called devolving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the thing. They end up doing a bait and switch where they say, well, see, if it happens in special evolution, in the adaptation, then you can suddenly change from one family of animal to another. And
philo change.
Yeah, and yet those require two different things. One is the loss of information in DNA, and the other is the gaining of information in DNA.
We should have Anthony on sometime. We could talk about all of that kind of stuff. I love to interact with that kind of information.
Well, actually, we will. I'm going to be headed to the Philippines in May, and he's going to fill in for 3 Thursdays.
Yes.
So lots of evolution debates then.
He needs to come on sooner because the first week of May I'll probably not be on here because I'll be traveling.
Ah, okay. Well, then maybe Eli and I will get on.
Maybe, yeah. That's right.
So, I don't know if Kat has any questions. She's in here early. She likes to come in early. So I've added her in. Kat, if you have any questions.
I wish I had something absolutely phenomenal, but no, I just love listening.
Okay, so maybe Paul in the chat would join us, and because he's saying macroevolution is just microevolution over a long period of time. This is
Well, then, if that's the case, then microevolution is a reduction of the allele frequency, where macro is an increase in it. The problem is that people who say that kind of thing, they don't understand really the difference between them. Microevolution is when you have, say, for example, there's a storm that blows a bunch of birds off the coast hundreds of miles away to an island, and there's no birds there. And so this is the only species of birds that's there. And let's just say, 40 or 50 are blown off. And now we have this new population of birds there. Well, let's just further say that that island doesn't have much food that they like, and let's just say that in order to get the food, they have to have bigger bills, and the bigger billed ones will survive. Well, then the ones with the weaker, smaller bills don't survive, and they don't send out or descend or reproduce, and they as well, and so they're eventually wiped out. So their genetics are wiped out, and so whenever a manifestation of that genetic information of a small bill manifests, then it's wiped out because they don't pass on their genes because they can't eat. Well, then that would mean then microevolution is in this sense the bigger billed ones, but it's not because they have new information that makes their bills bigger. It's because whenever a small billed genetic information rises, it's removed. So it's a reduction of the information. That's usually what speciation is in that sense. That's not always the case, but there's variations like that. Macroevolution is a rather humongous, significant change and increase in genetic information. So how do you change from a fish to an amphibian? The genetic information that's necessary for that is just phenomenal. It's the amount of information. It's called a phyla change. He's going to do the tape on the box. And so the phyla change is a body type change, and that this is the fossil record supposedly. So it's 530 to 550 million years ago, the Cambrian explosion, where phyla body changes, these phyla changes produced very, very quickly, and it's just not enough time for evolution to account for it. Absolutely not enough time. The amount of information necessary for that to occur is just way too huge. It cannot occur even in that millions and millions of years. People who say that just don't know the facts. And in science classes, they don't talk about the counter information to evolution. None of it's produced. None of it's presented. And there is counter information.
And you bring up the point, because when we talk about special evolution, which is what he's referring to as micro, in the small changes, adaptation, speciation, things like that, it is a loss of information in DNA. That Christian scientists agree that happens. That is the idea of natural selection. That's the idea of being of what they refer to as evolution. But as this person says, the assumption that those changes, losing DNA over time, the example you give with the beak, the bird has the DNA for both a long and short beak. It's in the DNA. Now, over time, it might lose one of those, that information. But when we talk about what he's referring to as microevolution or general evolution, that requires new, reproducible, beneficial information in the DNA. We see plenty of new information in DNA. It's called cancer. We see mutations that occur. The mutations we see most often are not beneficial. There are some that are beneficial, but those that are beneficial are not reproducible. For evolution to be true in what, as they claim, we have to have beneficial and reproducible happening so often that we see it happening over time. And yet we don't see evidence of any of it anywhere ever being both beneficial and reproducible in those mutations.
Yep. Evolution has all kinds of problems. And I'd show you my books, but we're packing them on evolution and the various books that work against evolution that demonstrate a lot of the facts. This is what gets me is They don't teach both sides of the story in science. They only teach one. And when counter evidence is proposed, it's knocked down and not allowed. There are plenty of accounts where people will have arranged debates in colleges between evolutionists and those who are intelligent design, and there'll be people who will picket and say that intelligent design is not allowed to be even debated. And they've actually had meetings canceled and debates canceled because students and faculty have put on pressure to not allow it. Now, this is supposed to be in a college thing where both sides are supposed to be presented information, education. So it just tells me that, really what's happening is it's not an issue of truth. In fact, it's an issue of agenda, as is often the case with so many things.
Well, it's censorship. They can't handle the debate, and so they need to censor, and that's what we see over and over again.
Yep.
And that's what's, you have a whole generation of kids that are unfortunately believing that they're right just because it's the only view they hear, and they don't even know the bait and switch that's being played for them.
That's right. Amen to that. Matt, do you think there was a flood and the entire earth was covered in water, and you say people don't know the facts? Well, Paul, the Bible says all the mountains were covered. I have no problem with that. And also, Paul, what you don't understand is that there are sedimentary layers with fossils in them in high mountains all over the world. All over the world. How do you account for that? You can say that it just wasn't true. You can mock it. You can do whatever you want. But flood stories exist in every single culture around the entire world. Every single one has a major flood story, not just the river overflowed 3 years ago. No, a story in their great history about a flood destroying everything. And every culture has that. Something happened in the past, Paul. Maybe you might want to stop your mocking tone and do some homework, do some studying.
Well, and here's the thing. You just brought up the Cambrian explosion, where all these fossils suddenly somehow we have all this fossil record. Well, that would explain the flood. I mean, that's basically what that is.
Yeah.
When we look at the flood, that's what we end up seeing. We see a whole bunch of fossils that all come about in one time. And this is the problem with, and Paul, you're welcome to join us, because what you end up seeing is people that make statements because they're gaslighted. They believe it's true because they've been told it's true over and over. I'm going to bring in, I know his name is not Amber. He uses his wife's account. Let me turn his volume up. I believe, and you could correct me, I think your name was Steve?
Yes,
if I'm right.
sir. How's it going, Andrew?
Okay, I'm not hearing you.
You hear me now?
Make sure. Oh, I didn't hear you. Now I hear you.
You hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, my name's Steven.
All right.
Yeah.
So it's not Amber. We're not going to have a problem with where you're not sure.
No, she's over there. She's over there cooking the calzones. She's over there cooking. My mom and her are cooking calzones for supper.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I haven't seen.
I hope you're shipping some this way.
No. The story is I haven't seen my mom in over about 15 years. I moved here to Missouri, and she's a believer. My whole testimony starts with her. But anyways, we flew her out here. She's gonna be staying out here for about a month and a half or so. So really good.
Good.
How's it
Well,
going,
if you ship some calzones over this way, I'm just saying. So what questions do you have tonight?
So I had a default for, I came to the doctrines of grace a while ago. And the doctrine that I had, I kind of defaulted on, basically like a default position, was on the atonement. I see exegetically from the scriptures. I think probably the one I usually go to is the one in Colossians and the one in Hebrews where, about the atonement.
Banging.
What's that? Yeah.
Someone's banging.
Yeah, that's her chopping stuff up. So my question is, I gotta preach tomorrow, but I'm trying to help my mom out.
In what respect?
With the limited atonement.
That's easy.
Yeah. sort of, because she has a independent fundamentalist background.
So do I.
Well, how about this? Just ask her this. Ask her.
Yeah.
Ask her. What does it mean for Jesus to pay for people's sins? People,
Yeah.
we've heard this 100 times, but what does
Yeah.
it actually mean?
Yeah.
And they give all kinds of answers. Well, it means he paid for them. I got that. He paid for them. What does it mean to pay for them? And you just start throwing out questions. Is a sin debt canceled? He took the sins that we committed and paid for them. Well, what does it mean to pay for a sin? You start asking questions like this, because what does it mean to pay for a sin? What's the effect once a sin's paid for? It's like a debt. You have a debt, on layaway, whatever, a debt, something a car, and you pay it off. So it's paid for. Does the debt exist anymore? And when does it not exist? When you believe, or when it's paid for? Just questions like this get her thinking. She goes, "That's right."
Yeah. Yeah. Right on. But I enjoy you guys. I tell Amber all the time I'm gonna go check out my new friend Matt. And she says I only spoke to you a few times, so we're not friends. But I don't believe her. I think we're friends.
That works.
Yeah.
Well, when Matt starts insulting you, then you know you're his friend.
Right on.
That's why I don't insult Andrew. I just tell the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah.
That was a good comeback.
But,
Yeah.
I'm just hanging out here. I appreciate you guys, though. I'm just
Okay. Well, good, man.
So
good.
All right, then we'll so I'm going to mute you. If you want to come back in, just
I got
say something. Oh, you got something else. Hold on.
Yeah, one more request. If you guys can just keep me in prayer. I got to go to this recovery house, and I got invited to minister there once a week. So just keep that in prayer.
Is that where you're going tomorrow night? That you said you're going to be?
Yeah, tomorrow night will be my first night, and if they want me to come back, then it'll be once a week.
Okay.
So
we'll keep that in prayer.
Right on.
We will. So I'm going to just get you down. If you want to join back in, just raise your hand. I'll see. I added Andrew in, our friend from down under. See if you have questions here for us tonight, Andrew.
Yeah, you alluded to devolution. Not really sure how to phrase it, but I recall watching a DVD or a YouTube clip of an Australian who claimed to discover some form of devolution. So the loss of information, and then that comes in the steps. How is that even possible?
So what are you doing? I told him.
Steven Snow. What do you got? Yeah. Are you talking about genomic entropy? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I was talking about some discovery of two different sort of species, breeds of humanity that they found in China or somewhere. And the only way that they could actually make it work was to take to a devolution level. So we've gone back instead of gone up.
Yeah, I'd have to check that out. Who wrote it?
I don't know. It was a YouTube clip. It was an Australian clip in China, going in China. There was a whole drama put before it, as they try to do, to present the position of these two tribes finding each other and killing each other, sort of thing, or interact, or well, not kill, but in a way of interacting. But it was that was the first place I've heard or ever heard really of the devolution in any serious format, because I don't think there's any significant atheists. I don't think you'd find Dawkins or even Hitchens, the late Hitchens, or anybody else even supporting a devolution. I'm wondering if that's...
I heard recently about genetic entropy, and what it is our code, our genetic code with each generation is a little bit less efficient, and that within 200 more generations, someone said 200 to 250, reproduction will be impossible.
Mm.
Yeah, there's
Well,
yeah, I forget the name. I have the book upstairs.
Yeah, I got to research it and see. But
Yeah.
it's
They've been
just things to
saying-
research.
The idea behind
Sorry.
it is that our the DNA, as it continues to be passed on, keeps degrading, and there is a limit to how often how many generations you would be able to have before the DNA breaks down too much to where reproduction is not
Yeah.
possible.
We know that's the case. We've observed that very phenomena with leftists because they have lots of kids really fast. There's been a lot of genetic entropy in their lineage.
Yeah, but then they have abortion, so they end up wiping out most of their voters that way.
Yeah, it's oh boy. Anyway, but yeah. Anyway,
All right, so
yeah. Anyway, I was going to say, in addition to that, you've got the leftists like what's the name? I can't remember her name, but the Senator Cortez, whatever her name is, trying to say that in 12
AOC.
years' time. Yeah, I see Cortez trying to say that in 12 years we won't even be.
yeah, I know, but you know what the problem is? Al Gore said
No,
about
right. This is why I'm asking the question.
we'll be here in 15 years, and we're still here.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say about 30 years ago, they said 12 years until the end of the earth. So, it's like over double that. She does say a lot of stupid things.
When Matt and I were kids, we were supposedly going back into a global ice age, and the solution was government control. Now, supposedly, we're going into global warming, and the solution is government control.
Government control.
There seems to be a pattern there. And now that we're going back into a cooling phase, now we don't call it global warming. We call it, climate change, but you're not allowed to use that name anymore because now it's extreme weather. So what's the solution, Matt?
God?
No, government control. That's
Sorry.
We need more government control, because your government always works well and always controls things better. We just look at Venezuela.
I'm trying to be funny when I said God. That's all.
Yeah. So I do hope that Paul will join us. I see that he's active. He's been active on in the chat.
We already did. Oh yeah. Sorry.
What's Cameron doing? Causing problems over there?
Yeah, Nick wants me to get rid of more of my books. I'm like, we'll talk. I've already given away hundreds.
I think I can make some room around here. My Mormon section can use some expansion.
You know what? If I'd have known, what I could have done was gone through and taken some Mormon stuff out. But when I get to my new place, I'll be culling a lot of the books that I've got.
Nah, I'll just have Cameron send them all here, right over here. So for
a lot of books
that are watching on YouTube, my challenge is don't be a keyboard warrior.
Yeah.
Stand on your convictions. Come in here and challenge us. I mean, don't just say that we don't know what we're talking about. It's amazing how guys like this guy, Paul, who just doesn't want to come in here, doesn't want to actually challenge, just wants to challenge online. I think it's because these guys know that their arguments are not sound. They can't really make a good argument, and therefore they're it's easy to type it and run away.
It is.
Oh, cool. I'm listening. I'm just watching the rain.
I was also going to add the other day, Vocab Malone had Johnson Safati on, and earlier this morning he had him on as a part of a different interview, one of these shows where it goes for a certain time and then it ends. It was quite interesting.
So Matt, until we unless Andrew, do you have any other questions, Andrew?
No, not off the top of my head.
Okay. So until some folks want to come in and maybe give some challenges here.
Whoa. Hey, we got marble-sized hail happening here right now. Loving it.
Why didn't you bring your camera with you so we could see it?
Hey, I'll bring my camera. Get my phone camera.
No. Bring the camera on the computer. Bring the whole computer outside.
Yeah, that'd be funny. Yeah.
That would be good. So Matt, let's talk gun control. You said-
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm against it.
So why would you? I'm from Jersey, so I must be for gun control. What would be your best arguments why you'd be against gun control?
For one thing, it's unbiblical.
What verse
And,
says that you have a gun?
Hold on a sec here.
He's
What's that?
Matt came into a room to get his phone so he could take a picture.
Yeah, well, I'm it's hailing outside. It's awesome.
All right. Well, I'm gonna. So do you want to give some arguments for gun control? If not, Brian just came in. He was one of the guys that was in chat. So,
well, gun control. I mean, what happens, generally speaking, when you take people's weapons away from them, they're not able to defend themselves, and it's the wicked who want the good to be defenseless, so that the wicked are the ones who are able to do what they want. And the power-hungry sociopaths in government, they want to take away our guns so that they can be in control of us. What happened in New Zealand, the idiocy of them saying, well, let's ban more weapons because that'll solve everything. No, it's not going to solve everything. In England, they don't. People can't have guns. Well, wow, look at that. Cool. Here's the hail that we're having out there. Pretty cool. Huh?
And you know what's neat about that, Matt? You are so cold that it's not even melting in your hand.
So in England, actually, what's happening is there's a knife attack every 5 minutes or something like that. What are they do? Outlaw knives now? No, it's just ridiculous. So I want to be able to defend myself and defend my family.
Yeah, and I think baseball bats are the actually number one weapon of violence in America.
Can you do that in there?
So
Grace?
I'm going to add Brian in here. He was one of the guys that was chatting in the chat room. And it looks like he may be in a warehouse. So I'm hoping. So you're now added, Brian. Let's see if we can hear you. You got to unmute yourself, though.
Hi, Andrew. How are you doing?
Good. So it sounds like you might be in a warehouse or something there.
Yeah, I'll stay muted until I'm speaking. That's fine.
Sure. So go for it. So what questions do you got?
Well, I just got timed out in the chat. What's up with that?
Are you the one who was insulting or what?
No.
Well, I can give you the answer to that. He was timed out for mocking and distracting. It's only a timeout. You're
okay.
Well, there you go.
That's
why
you just proved it. He just proved it.
I think, he proved it for himself.
No,
Thanks.
no,
I'm going back to mute.
So, Brian, do you have a question?
He can be on timeout if he's going to cuss. That's it.
No. I think he could be respectful. So
only if he agrees not to cuss, not to be insulting, and if he doesn't agree, he's gone. This is a grown-up conversation we want to have. We don't want to have puerile conversation and foul language. So, are you able to do that, Brian?
Yeah, but the problem with that is there are multiple studies that show the intelligence of people who use profanity on a regular. Is that?
Okay, I'm not going to play with him. He either agrees or he doesn't have a conversation in here. I don't want to have someone come in and justify why it's okay to have foul language. So I'm not interested in having a conversation with him.
So Brian, do you have some questions?
Yeah, specifically for you, Andrew. Is that okay?
Yeah, we're waiting.
Yeah. So I've been following you in the Apologetics 2.0 group on Facebook. You seem to have a hard-on for the gays.
Okay, get rid of him. Get rid of him. Please get rid of him.
What did I?
Okay.
Yeah.
My guess is just by the group that he's referring to. There's a guy who wanted to debate me, Matt, based on things that Anthony Silvestro said, things that you said. When I said I didn't say them, so I'm not going to debate things I haven't said. It was exposed that I was right and he was wrong. And to save face, his argument was that I ran from the debate. 3 people tried setting up a debate with the guy. and he denied all 3 times. The reality is that his argument, because I'm guessing since he was starting to refer to homosexuality, these guys came up with an argument. This is their logic, Matt. If you group other letters with LGTB, I was asked to speak on LGTB and plus. One of the things that some people want to add to plus is M, which is MAPS, minor attracted people. Their argument is that I'm claiming if I add an M, that all homosexuals are pedophiles.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it would be, because
if that's the case, then why don't they say L's? All L's are B's and all B's are G's.
Exactly. That's what shows the problem in the logic. If the gay stands for males that are homosexual and the L stands for women who are homosexual, you can't have those two then, because they would be mutually exclusive, right? I mean, that's what shows the illogic of it. That each letter has a separate meaning. The fact is they're the ones that keep coming after me. I don't bring up the issue. And what they're responding to, the irony is they're responding to a message I gave where I talked about showing respect and compassion, something they have yet to do.
Yeah. Well, you know how the leftists are. The hypocrisy of leftism is profound. They want freedom of speech, but not for you. They want respect, but not for you. They want fairness, but not for you. That's just how it is with them. I never really understood, seriously, and I'm not joking, when Jesus would say to the Pharisees, "You hypocrites." I went, okay, well, we're hypocrites. I don't quite get it. Now I'm getting it. Why it's so important about hypocrisy. And it's the left that has really shown me that.
Well, it's interesting, and traditional Catholic is in. We'll bring him up in a minute. But, when we look at politically, this is what we see. We see censorship. They talked about tolerance and being open-minded and being, not judging other people until they felt they had enough of the control of the culture to then say, now anyone that disagrees with us has to be silent. It shows that they really weren't interested in tolerance. I mean, Trump had to actually do an executive order to say that colleges that receive government funding have to be open to free speech. That's where they used to argue for free speech when they were trying to push liberal ideas. Now that they have the liberal ideas kind of entrenched, they don't want open and free discussion anymore.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The colleges are agenda factories. They're not higher education factories. When I went to college back in the 80s, the left leaningness was just there, and the lack of ability of critical thinking was profound among the faculty. I got stories about my interaction with some of the faculty at a secular college, and let's just say I had a reputation at this one junior college that I went to for a couple of years. I had a reputation there, and they were afraid of me. And it's not because I was mean. It wasn't because I was threatening. I'd just be in a class. Wait a minute, what about this? What about that? What about this question? And I would just do this. I just ask questions. And I go, well, I don't agree with that. And they didn't want to talk with me after a while because I was a student who actually said, what about the other side? What about this? What about that?
Well, they can't teach critical thinking. I mean, you can't teach critical thinking and evolution because they're mutually exclusive. But basically what you end up seeing is that they're not really interested in free thinking. They're not interested in opposing views. They want to shut it down because they just can't win in the debate of ideas.
Right, they can't. That's why I say it's agendas, and
that's why they put up promote legislation like the Green New Deal and then go, we don't actually want that voted on. What is he doing? He's tearing the door off or something?
He's moving my shelves because my back is gone. He's come over. He took a day off from work to come over and help me. And so he's doing all the work. It's great.
Well, it's good that Cameron's finally working.
Yeah, finally getting done. Yeah, he's taking.
I've never seen him work.
See, look, there's my shelves are going.
Didn't look like that before. He really left a mess there. Look at that.
Yeah, I've been in here for 15 years, books and stuff like that, and we're moving. And my back is out, so I haven't been able to do much. We got guys coming over Excuse me. And so anyway.
All right. So I brought in a traditional Catholic. He's been in here before, bringing his volume up. And so I sorry about this. I forgot your name. I want to say it's Peter, but I can't remember.
Not Peter. James.
James, I'm sorry. Forgive me. So James, go ahead with what your question.
Yeah, there was another. Well, I had 3 questions, if that's okay. It shouldn't take that long to answer, but there was another hangout group that was on YouTube where there were supposedly white nationalists, and I don't know if you heard the news about Facebook banning, censoring all white nationalists. It's been reported today. But if you go on Facebook and you type in black nationalists, a whole bunch of pages will come up. But I'm against all, whether it be black nationalists, white nationalists, or any other kind of nationalists. I think it is all racist. But in that hangout group, they said that, and I can't remember what scripture that they presented, but they said it's actually biblical that different nations, meaning, and they said that the different nations are referring to different peoples, like black, white, etc., and that it's specifically saying that they should remain separate or something like that. And
it's called kinism.
They quoted the scriptures. I can't remember which ones, and I told them no, that's not biblical, and they quoted it, and I didn't know exactly what to say once they quoted it. So maybe you might be familiar with that.
Yeah, it's you go to Genesis 1:25. God made the beasts of the earth after their kind. This is one of the verses that you use. So blacks with their kind, whites with their kind, which is it's horrible exegesis. And so kinism is the idea you stay within your own race and economic structure that is race oriented as well. So there's a certain website that talks about it. Our white peoples have an inalienable, that is God-given right and duty to seek their own prosperity and existence as distinct nations, apart from all other genetic and ethnic families. We believe the cultures of our European ancestry to have achieved a similarity, which allows them to seek unity, where unity is conducive to the glorification of God. We further recognize the value, uniqueness, preciousness of all the families of man, of God, their equal theoretical participation in salvation offered by God through election. So they sound good in a lot of areas, but what they do, blacks with blacks, white with white, things like that. And economic diversification also based in part on that. So,
yeah, I figured they were trying to twist scripture. And I have another question. You had said that you've before that you've had experience with apparitions, demonic activity.
Yes, I have.
The last apparition that you spoke of, you said that it turned into a cross.
Yes.
And I was wondering, do you believe that that was an angel from God, or do you believe that was some sort of demonic being?
Demonic.
Okay. And my third question is this, in context with the whole moving that's taking place. I'm sure you've seen movies like The Conjuring. I don't know if you've seen them or not. The Conjuring, Amityville Horror, movies about where paranormal activity is in a home whereby the people, they moved into this home that other people, there was a history in the home. I don't know if the home that you're moving into is something that other families lived in, but in Catholicism, usually we have a home blessed with holy water, and we call on the Lord's name in the Trinity, in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and we rebuke any demonic entities that's in the home. And that's when we move into a home that's been used. At least, some Catholics do that. But what's in Protestantism? What is the process with Protestants whenever moving into a home?
There is no official Protestant methodology like that. But what I will probably do when I get into the home we eventually buy is, I'm sure it'll be used. And what I will do is go through and take oil and just anoint every single wall, every single room, every single door, every single window. Just very lightly. It'll take me an hour or two to go through the entire house, praying out loud and just asking the Lord to bless and to bind any potential evil that may have occurred, et cetera, that kind of a thing. I've done it in houses before, done it to this house. In fact, in this house here, we started having, a few years ago, we started having issues, odd things that started becoming more prevalent in the house. And even to the point where one of my daughters said that she saw a figure in a hallway. And so, it wasn't much. It's like, is that anything? Is this anything? And then we started, more and more things, little odd things. Like, where's this? This has been, I put it right there. It's not there anymore. Where's that? Why did it show up over here? Just stuff that you wonder about. And then when she said that someone else actually said that they saw a figure, and then she saw a figure, then my other daughter said she saw something. I went, okay. So my wife took everybody away, went out and saw a movie or something, and I anointed the entire house, all of it. And I mean everything. It took me about an hour. And after that, we had no problems. I'm not saying you do some mystical thing like that, things are going to work, but I'm just telling you that that's what I did.
Okay. And I just wanted to say, that's all the questions I have, but I just wanted to say that we Catholics agree with you, Matt, with the whole covenantalism. We reject dispensationalism. Mike is free.
Well, let me say something about this. I'm actually working on an article on divine simplicity, 2 articles. What is divine simplicity? A little bit of its history, a little bit of this explanation. And I'm writing divine simplicity as it relates to the doctrine of the Trinity. And one of the statements I made is, the Catholics and the Protestants both affirm divine simplicity. And I went to, oh wow, I can't believe I remember this. I think it was paragraph 43 in the CCC, which I thought was good enough. And then out of the Belgic confession, wow, a Protestant thing. Anyway, so Catholicism has a lot of good stuff in it. The Trinity, hypostatic union, communicatio idiomatum, has various things, but it also has its heresies as well. So not everything in Catholicism is wrong. And I tell people that every now and then. They're surprised to hear me say that. But, they can do some things that are on the right side, but that's about it.
And for folks, CCC, you're referring to the Catholic Catechism that came out under John Paul II.
Yeah, Catechism of the Catholic Church, CCC. And it has Nihil obstat in the imprimatur, which means it's official. And for sedevacantists, I'll just have to find more information out of Council of Trent and things like that. But the CCC is just easy to work. I have the entire Council of Trent online on my computer and stuff like that, and can go through things. Anyway.
All right. So, James, you got anything else for us tonight? He's still muted, so I'm going to think that's a no. All right. I added Chris Harris. We always get some good Reformed discussions when he has questions. So I've added him. I checked to make sure his volume's up. So, Chris, if you want to unmute yourself. Unless, of course, no, there we go.
How y'all doing tonight?
Good.
Okay.
Good. I really didn't have any questions. I just came in to see you guys. But I mean, if you'd want something, I guess I could ask you, Matt, about you brought up the atonement earlier.
About what?
You brought up the atonement earlier, the atonement of Christ, as far as limited atonement, and it was something I was going to ask you about that. When you say that he paid the debt, what exactly do you mean that he paid the debt on the cross?
What I understand it to mean is that sin is a legal problem. 1 John 3:4 says sin is lawlessness, and laws by nature have punishments. So there's a consequence. So it's a debt. And you've heard the phrase, paid our debt to society. Well, society takes the place in this issue of the issuer of the law. And in the biblical sense, God is the issuer of the law. So when we lie, we offend God's character. We're saying that it's okay to lie. It's okay to be contrary to him. If he were to not deal with that, he would be permitting evil and unrighteousness to occur without dealing with it. And that would be unrighteous in itself. God deals with us. So nevertheless, sin is breaking the law of God, 1 John 3:4. Jesus equates sin with legal debt. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. In Matthew 6:12, he says, forgive us our sins, our debts. In Luke 11:4, forgive us our sins. So he equates legal sin with debt. And legal sins could be transferred. Our debts can be transferred. So he bore our sin in his body on the cross. Sin's breaking the law of God. The breaking of the law, that issue is a legal debt, transferred to Christ on the cross, 1 Peter 2:24. So when he paid it, the wages of sin is death, Romans 6:23, then he paid the requirement of the law of sin, which is death. So by imputation, our sin was imputed to him 2,000 years ago, and then he died with that sin, so that that sin debt is now paid. And because it's paid, it's canceled at the cross, Colossians 2:14. And therefore, it cannot be the case that the sin debt that has been paid, which is also canceled, it cannot be held against anybody whose sin debt's actually been paid and canceled.
Okay,
that makes sense?
Cool. Yeah, it makes sense. Now, how is it that we come to limited atonement by that? So did Christ,
Easy.
what I'm asking is, did Christ pay a certain amount at the cross?
I don't like the phrase certain amount. Let's do it this way. Did he, the question, there's two questions. He either paid for the sins of everybody who ever lived, or it's not the case that he paid for the sins of everybody who ever lived. Both of them cannot be true. So if he paid for the sins of everybody who ever lived, then he paid their sin debt. If a debt's paid, the debt doesn't exist anymore. So if the debt doesn't exist anymore, that means the sin that they've committed has been satisfied, has been removed, has been taken care of. So how can anybody then go to hell? Because it's been removed.
Right. I see what you're saying there. So how is it that from a limited atonement position, we escape eternal justification?
I'm not sure by eternal justification. We're not eternally justified in the sense that we're justified back then, because what happens is our sin debt is removed at the cross, but we're not justified until we believe. There's a now and a not yet. So Jesus removed our sin. That's why federal headship is necessarily part of the atoning work in concert with limited atonement. Federal headship is the doctrine that the male represents the descendants. Jesus represented his people. All that the Father gives me will come to me. So the ones who are given to him by the Father are the ones who will come to him. And so he took care of their sin. And it cannot be that he took care of everybody's sin, because if he did, then nobody could go to hell. Since people do go to hell and are judged, it's logically necessary to say that he only bore the sins of a certain group of people. And so we would say that the blood of Christ, and this is what I say to, I'm the one who says this, I don't know if anybody else who says it, doesn't mean other theologians haven't, but I say the blood of Christ is sufficient to cleanse all people of all sin. But legally, he only bore the sin of the elect, because the only actual transfer of sin debt was of the elect.
And the way that the Puritans would say it is that it was sufficient for all, but effective for few.
Yeah, I say the blood of Christ, and I separated a little bit the blood of Christ from the legal transference, because sin's a legal problem, a legal debt. Jesus said in John 19:30, "It is finished," tetelestai in the Greek, which has been found on the bottom of ancient tax receipts, handwritten, a legal debt's been paid in full. That's what it meant, and that's how it was used in many contexts. And so we have that Jesus saying on the cross. So he paid for it. Now his blood, because by the nature of it being God, divine, well, it's infinitely capable. But if it's infinitely capable, in that sense that it's combined with the payment of sin, well, then whose sin? And here's another thing. There's a problem with open theism, is that the open theist can't really say which sins are imputed to Christ, because I'm going to kill 2-3 birds with one stone here. The idea of open theism is that God knows generically what will happen in the future, but not specifically, because he can't know exhaustively and specifically the free will choices of all people throughout all time. Otherwise, they're not free, which is stupid. So I asked the open theist, I say, well, then what sins were imputed to Christ 2,000 years ago of the people who specifically were going to do various things later on? And they really can't answer the question. Well, it's just generic sin. What does that mean? What's generic sin? What is generic sin? No, it's actual sins that we have committed that have to be dealt with. Not generic sin. Sin is a generic thing. There's some sin out there in the world. Let me catch it with my, okay, got some right here, some generic sin. It doesn't make any sense. So when we understand that Jesus 2,000 years ago bore our sin in his body on the cross, 1 Peter 2:24, and it says in Romans 6:6 or Romans 6:8 that we're crucified with Christ, we died with Christ. The only way we can, I ask people, I say, when were you crucified with Christ? When you believe, or when Jesus died on the cross? And they say, when I believe, when I believed. And I say, no. You're crucified with him. You died with him, Romans 6:8, Romans 6:6, respectively. So when did he die? 2,000 years ago. So when did you die with him? 2,000 years ago. When were you crucified with him? 2,000 years ago. They can't get it because they don't understand biblical theology regarding the doctrine of federal headship. And the only way we could have died with him is if he represented us. That's what federal headship is. So that means that the ones who were given to him by the Father were the ones that he came to redeem, or the sins that were imputed to him on the cross, and he canceled their sin debt at the cross, Colossians 2:14, not when you believe. So your sin debt is canceled at the cross. God infallibly brings people that are elected for salvation and atoned for into the faith. They are then justified by faith when they believe. So what I say is that 2,000 years ago, your sins were removed. And when you believe, you're justified. So you have a person right here. His sin was removed, taken away 2,000 years ago, and salvation occurred, or justification occurred, when you believe. And it makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah.
Go more, but that's okay.
Yeah. But one other question: like, if we're going to say that Christ bore the sins of the elect only, he paid for the sins of the elect only, how do we escape? If we say that he only bore the sins of the elect, then how do we escape a commercial view of the atonement versus a penal substitutionary view?
Commercial view that he generically bore the sin of everybody?
No. Commercial view would be like if Christ, like say sin was like canned goods in a grocery store, and Jesus came into the store and he was only going to purchase certain items, and so he gathered all these items up and he brings to the front and he pays a certain price for those items only, and that would be a commercial understanding of the atonement.
Commercial theory of the atonement.
Yes.
By Anselm, that sin robbed God of his honor. Therefore, it is necessary to have God's honor restored by either punishing sinners or through an atonement. God chose to atone by the death of Christ, which brought honor to God. The problem with this theory is that the motivation of God's atoning work is holiness rather than love. And it gets into compartmentalizing God. I'm not sure what the commercial theory is in that context.
Well, it's that he only spilled a certain amount of blood, right? He only spilled enough blood to pay for the sins of the elect.
No.
Would be the commercial view.
Well, when we say he only spilled a certain amount of blood, that's a meaningless kind of a statement because, the human body only has so much volume of blood. So what do they mean? A certain amount of
Well, okay, that he only bore X amount of sin, or he only paid for X amount of sin, when he could have paid for more, would be the commercial view. The penal substitutionary view would be that.
Well, yeah, I mean, he only paid for the sins of the elect as a limited amount of sin.
Right. But I think, and you brought up Owen's dilemma, I think is what it's called earlier, with if he only bore the sins of some of the people and so forth, the way that Owen laid it out, which I agree with. I think people confuse that with a commercial understanding of the atonement, where Owen himself would have grounded the limitation of the atonement in the intention of the Godhead. So he'd have pushed it back to the covenant of redemption and who it was that the Father elected, and that was the ones who Christ would procure their salvation with his work
makes
on the
perfect
cross.
sense.
Right, but they would say that work on the cross was sufficient to pay for all the sins of this world plus an infinite amount of others.
It doesn't make any sense. It was when people say it was sufficient for all on the cross. What does it mean? In what way was it sufficient?
Sure, I'll explain it real quick. So penal, if we look at the what the debt that we owe is a penal debt, right? God is the judge we have to stand before in order to have judgment on our sin. Well, the judgment for that sin is death, right? The wages of sin is death. So Christ paid that judgment with his death, and the idea is that even if the elect consisted only of one person that had one sin, then the work that Christ did would have had to have been the exact same that he did, right? So
same.
Yeah, he would have had to done the exact same thing that he did, even if he had to pay for the sin of one person, and that person only had one sin. Does that make sense?
I think so, but I don't see a differentiation between the penal substitutionary atonement theory, because it just, and limited atonement, it just says that Jesus only bore the sins of the elect. That's a limited amount of sins.
Right. I just really think that sometimes that gets pushed into the commercial view. But anyway, I think we've
Well,
had.
I'm curious
I
about
don't
it.
want to take up too much
Oh,
time with this. It was just something I want
that's
to
all
talk
right.
about.
I'm trying to understand the commercial view.
It's what allows. It's what allows for. Well, I'm being told this, and I didn't think it was. I think there's been some new look into hypothetical universalism, where that the work of the cross was hypothetically, or is hypothetically available to all people because the atonement was made for all people, in the sense that the work of the cross was sufficient for all people. So
No, I wouldn't buy that. He's a propitiation for our sins. By definition, the atonement is a propitiation. The propitiation is the thing that turns away wrath. It doesn't make it possible. It actually does remove it. So
right,
if
that would be the argument, that if it does remove it, then you're going to fall back into eternal justification. Like the elect are born justified. They're born right before God legally.
No, they're not. No, I've never thought that. Eternal justification. They don't even exist. How can they be, justified? Well, people say, well, then how could they have their sins borne? That's a toughie. But I understand the idea of eternal justification, the problem is justification occurs upon belief. So they've not believed, they can't be justified. So there's a sense in which you could say they're eternally justified, in the sense that God has decreed that they are to be justified, and so in His mind sufficiently they have been, just as in Romans 9:28, Romans 8:28-29, those who before knew He also predestined and also glorified. And the word glorified there's in the past tense, and that's a future thing. So God sees us as already having completed that in His mind, because it's so complete and true. So there could be, in that sense, that we're justified is guaranteed, even though in time it has not yet happened. So it depends on, I think, what they mean by it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that's the way I've always explained it in the past. Has always been that that it is good as done in the when it was decreed in the Godhead, right? So it's an already not yet type situation that it's realized temporally upon faith in Christ, which I think that's a great way to do it. But lately I've been looking into the atonement itself more, and I just had some questions about it, and that's kind of, I wanted to lay my views out and see what you thought. So.
Yeah, it's I think the way to weave through some of the issues is to be more precise in our definitions in those kind of things. It's more sophisticated discussions, getting more nuanced concepts on the nature. But limited atonement makes perfect sense to me, at any rate, because sin's a legal debt. Legal debt's transferred. Legal debts are canceled at the cross. The wages of sin is death. It's done. So who do you do? If He paid for the sins of everybody, then that means that all their sin debt's canceled. They can't go to hell.
Well, see, and they would also push back to like John chapter 1, where it says that John the Baptist preached that, or John 2 actually, no, John 1, John 1:19 through 28. But anyway, it's when John the Baptist preached that here's the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. It's sin in the
John 1:29.
Singular.
Well, then I ask, did He take away the sin of those who are damned?
Conditioned upon faith would be.
It doesn't say that, but it doesn't say that.
Right.
It says He takes it away. Presently, He takes it away, the whole world. That's one question. Well, did He take it away of the people who were in hell? And the answer has to be no.
Right. They would say conditioned upon faith, and then, but a minute ago we made
that's irrelevant here.
We made it conditional on faith as well, right?
No.
It's not realized until faith happens.
No, John 1:29. He takes away the sin of the world. Now, there's two questions that need to be asked here. What does it mean to take away the sins, of those people in hell? And what does the word world mean? They're going to be saying it means every individual. If it means every individual who's ever lived, then He takes away the sin of every individual who ever has lived.
Right, and this is where Owen comes into play, because that's Owen's dilemma once again. So, and remember that I told you, because it's hard not to get Owen confused with the commercial aspect of the atonement. He would say that limitation of who it was that the sin was taken away is only limited in the intention of the Godhead, but in eternity, in their decree in the covenant of redemption. So the limitation comes there and not in the work itself of Christ on the cross.
Now that's an interesting thing, because that's what I've been wondering, that kind of a thing. Because what does it mean to actually pay someone's sin debt or debt? So if you and I are in a restaurant and we overhear someone, a mom with 2 kids, and she lost her wallet, and the manager's getting upset, and we just say, hey, let's pull our money and pay your debt. We pay the meal, right? So we can understand what that is. It's a limited debt payment. We're not paying for everybody in the restaurant. So we can understand that there's an abstraction, it's an intention in that we are paying that debt, but it works out in the real world of putting cash down for this theoretical thing called debt that she's incurred for food at a restaurant. Well, this is all abstraction, and so we're making real time of it. Well, how does that work with God? That Jesus only bore. This is a question I was, these people who are against limited atonement could ask a question. What does it mean to bear the sin? I think they should ask the question. What does it mean to bear the sin? Which it works either way. Jesus can't. Is he bearing an abstraction, or is there this intention of God only for the elect? What does this mean, that he bore our sin in his body? Or what about 1 Samuel 3:14, where it says, God says, I've sworn to the house that the house of Eli will not have the sins, iniquity atoned for by sacrifice or offering forever. What does that mean? You really think about it in these terms. What does it mean when the high priest would go in and takes blood and sprinkle it on the mercy seat, and then they were propitiated to the people of Israel? What's happening conceptually, intentionally? I think these are good conversations to have. I don't know all the answers, but I do know spiritually something happened, and it only makes sense to say that he bore the sin of the elect, which means there has to be an intentional accounting of that person right there, just the same as you and I pay that bill of the woman at that table, but not the bill of the next table. We're actually doing that. So I think there's a similar occurrence in the spiritual realm, which I can't prove or describe, but that's it. This issue of the abstraction of the nature of the atonement I've been thinking about recently, and I'm coming up to raise more questions than I can answer right now.
True. See, I'm in that same boat, right? So I think that when we look at it from the perspective of the limitation comes in the Godhead, right, in the covenant of redemption. So, like I said, the Father chooses the people to elect. The Son is sent to procure their salvation, and the Spirit applies that salvation. So if we put the limitation in the intention of the Godhead rather than in the work of the cross, then we can allow for the work of the cross to actually be sufficient without having
But
to
I don't
limit it
know.
in some commercial way.
But what does it mean to be efficient? And I'm going to ask a bunch of questions, and it's not to be just annoying. It's, what does it mean to be efficient? I mean, these are questions I would ask myself if I was doing an article. Okay, what does it mean to be efficient? What does it mean to bear our sins? What does it mean to cancel the debt? What does it mean to have a sin debt? I mean, these are things, I got to work through these things, because the answers to those things are going to provide a better holistic answer. But I don't know if it's worth it. And furthermore, I don't know how really valuable it is to argue about limited atonement to begin with.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you on that. Now, some of this started when I looked into Calvin's understanding of the atonement, because a lot of people try to put Calvin on one side of the particular redemption debate or the other, which is really anachronistic. He never wrote of the atonement. There was a formula called the Lombardian formula that he was the formula of the day, and it allowed for the sufficiency of the atonement, but only efficacious for the elect. So it wasn't until 27 years after Calvin passed that his successor in Theodore Beza started the whole particular debate, because he took that formula of Lombard, and it had a preposition in it. He was a Latin linguist, and he said when he saw the preposition that says for, because it had that the Christ died for, he said that can only apply to the elect, and that sparked the whole particular universal debate of the atonement. So the Lombardian formula is what is what's used for the Reform today to bring in the model that Christ's death is sufficient for all, but only efficacious for the elect.
It can only be efficacious if there was somehow, some way, an intentioned. See, this we get it too abstract. I guess too many abstractions on this.
Yeah, well, look into it more and check out if you have some access to some journal articles. There's one called the Forgotten. Let's see, how's it worded? I'm outside. Sorry, my kids. If I go inside, my kids will be too loud. So I'm not on my computer. But it's called the Forgotten Atonement. The Forgotten Understanding Atonement of Calvin. I think it's a really good journal article by Ruwald, I believe it's got.
Mm-hmm.
There's a really good article on it, and just check it out sometime.
It'd be worth checking out. Yeah, I've been thinking more and more about this whole thing, and your questioning, or our comments together, I should say, are broaching that issue.
Yeah, cool.
You know, yeah, seriously.
All right, well, I enjoyed the conversation, Matt.
Yeah, me too.
All right, so before we got another Roman Catholic who's in here. Before we add him in,
oh yeah, please.
He's his name is DL. We'll have to ask what his real name is. Matt, you got something new from MyPillow this week, haven't you?
Yes. Hold on one second.
So Matt got himself the new MyPillow.
Sorry about that. Okay, yes, I did. I got a new bed topper thing. Yep.
Yeah, and so and you know, folks who listen regularly, you know that we are we're supported here by MyPillow. And check out this picture, man. Let me share something on my screen here. This is some of our listeners who got themselves a new MyPillow, and what they said they actually loved about it was what was included was some scripture references in the boxes. Yeah. So, but they are very happy MyPillow customers, as you and I are. And so
love it.
You got the new pillow topper.
Yes, I did.
You're gonna have to wait to use that.
Yes. And why am I gonna have to wait to use it?
Because you're too old to put it on your bed. That's
no, actually, I actually used it one night. Got up. I feel good. It's nice. It's really great. I bent down to pick up 2 socks, and my back went out. And it's been happening more frequently the older I get. And I've got to have to do something to strengthen it. So I'm going to wait a few days, put it back on, and stuff. I'm only starting to be able to walk again by myself without a cane or something. Just today, it was bad. I was crawling on the floor yesterday to get around. It's the only way I can move around. Oh, sheesh. Hey, look, folks, getting old is not for sissies.
So folks, we do love our MyPillows. It's not just that they're a product that they advertise on Matt Slick Live.
We really do like it.
We really enjoy our pillows.
And both of us have taken them on trips.
I take them on almost every trip. I'm probably going to have to figure out how to fit it in, because I'm probably limited on size when I go to the Philippines, but I'm going to have to bring it to the Philippines.
You have to get one of those suction things out and whatever. You got to figure it out, you know.
They come with it. They come, at least mine did, came with the travel bag that you roll it up, and so it vacuums it out. And it's amazing because it sucks out all the air, and then all you got to do is open that bag, shake out the pillow, and it's firm.
It's ready to go.
Amazing. So if you want to get a MyPillow like Matt and I, you can call 1-800-944-5396. That's 1-800-944-5396. Let them know that you heard about it on Apologetics Live, and make sure you get yourself a MyPillow. And so with that, I'm going to add DL into the group here, into the room. Let me make sure his volume is up. You can unmute yourself. And I don't know what his real name is, so if he could tell us his real name when he unmutes himself. Excuse me. I don't know that I can unmute him. I can't. Well, that's going to be a really short discussion if you don't unmute yourself.
Or you can type in his question then.
Yeah. Well, he was more. You had a question for him there.
There he goes.
No,
no, I thought he did.
That's someone else coming in. So
no, I thought he had.
DL, are you there? We'll give you a couple more seconds, and if not, maybe he walked away, and we'll go to Train of Thought, who just came in.
Yeah, he's been texting with me, DL. Perhaps he was like me. Initially, I didn't see that little navigation bar at the top with the microphone with the slash in it. Perhaps.
Yeah, he's in he's on a phone. So.
Oh, I see. Okay.
What you have to do if you're listening and you're trying to figure it out, just tap the screen, and there should be a microphone button. I think it comes up as red when you have it muted, and you just got to click the microphone button and start talking.
Glad you said that. I would have never figured it out on my phone.
Yeah. So what we'll do is I will add in Train of Thought. I know he's been commenting online on Google, and there's Cameron. There's Cameron taping up another box of books for me. Thank you, Cameron.
That was loud.
Yeah, well,
oh God, it's horrible.
So for folks to know, I was texting Cameron over there and trying to say, to get Cameron to come up behind Matt and choke Matt out live for everybody to watch.
Thumb poke him in the eyeball. I react when people do things to me automatically. I just do an aggressive thing. I laid my brother out once. He did that, and I was just telling Cameron about it. Maybe I don't know. Anyway, go ahead.
So DL said, Andrew, yes to accept or reject. Well, just I guess I'm not sure what he's asking. Just unmute yourself. I don't know if I'm not sure what he's asking with the accept or reject. So we're gonna go. We'll go over to Train of Thought. Let me make sure his volume is up. So Train of Thought, you can unmute yourself. There you go.
Okay. Hello. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
That's good. That's good. I was just texting in the chat, and I had a question, right? And it might sound like it might have sounded dumb. I don't know, but I was just curious as to why persecution exists. Like, what does God use that for? Because I see loneliness and persecution in these things, and it makes me curious because I don't know how God can use those things in a good way.
God can use persecution in several ways. One, to bring about His will. Sometimes when people are persecuted, they suffer, and when they suffer, they cry out to God, and that's a good thing. Sometimes people suffer and are persecuted because there's greater reward for them in heaven based on that. Sometimes we are persecuted because we need to be purified in the church, and that's another good thing. People are persecuted because that's the nature. Yeah, that's got to keep. That's right. Thanks.
What book is that? That should go to me. To the Stars.
By George Takei.
Wow.
And it's autographed, and he wrote, to Matt, to me, and I have a letter from him too. So persecution can be used by God for different reasons, but it's often to purify, and plus there's just a nature of unrighteousness persecutes righteousness, and it's just part of the nature of how it all works. So those are some of the reasons.
I guess I can kind of understand it. It's difficult because it's a painful thing, and for the most part, it's not good. But I guess there can be some good in it.
Oh yeah. Now one of the things I've been thinking about recently is we don't want to suffer here. Now, what if hypothetically, we existed before we came to Earth? We don't. But let's just say this is the case, just for an issue of discussion, and God said, look, I can arrange your life so that you have a really nice life. It'll be comfortable. You won't be persecuted. Or I can arrange your life to have some difficulties and persecution. But in that persecution, you'll be praising my name and glorifying me. And the result will be a higher reward in heaven. a greater reward in heaven. Which would you pick? Me, I would. There'd be no hesitation. I see. Let me pick that which will bring greatest glory to you and greatest reward. I can admit I want that forever versus 70, 80 years of life. So persecution is a small fraction of eternity. And it can be used to glorify God, to purify us, to bring about his will, also to demonstrate the goodness of good and the evilness of evil and things like that. There's lots of reasons. Okay. Cameron's awesome back there working for. He's a great guy.
And
he could hear me say that. Dang it.
Because he and I already agreed on shipping those books to me, so he is a great guy. I like Cameron a lot.
Oh, you want all my books, huh? Maybe, I could ship a lot of them out to people. I got way too many.
So did you have more train of thought that you sound like you unmuted yourself there for a second?
Yeah, I was just saying that was a good proposition when you put forth about having eternal life and going through suffering compared to having no pain in this life and then dying.
Right.
That was a good proposition.
Yeah, and I wonder about that. I mean, what's the greatest good for us? Is your best life now the greatest good for us, or is the greatest good for us closer to Jesus forever? There's no comparison. I know what the greatest good is, and I know exactly what I want. I want to be with him. If it means I got to suffer more here, then so be it. So that's how I see it.
All right. Anything else? Train of thought?
No, nothing at the moment. That was the main question, and nice.
All right. I'm just going to, because you get some kids in the background, I'm going to turn you down. And DL, I turned you up if you want to go ahead and ask your question now.
I don't have any questions.
Okay. What's your name?
What's my name?
Well,
I don't know. I don't feel really comfortable saying it.
Call you D. So are you a Roman Catholic?
Yeah, but is there any point in talking about that?
What?
Or...
You're a Roman Catholic, right?
Yes.
Okay. If you were to die right now,
he sounds
where
familiar.
would you go?
He sounds very familiar. You wouldn't happen to argue for Jesus being a Asian, would you?
No.
Oh, wait a minute. Are you Ben?
Yeah,
no.
Sounds very similar.
I don't know why.
Same guy as last week.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Maybe he came back with notes.
Why do you think so? I mean,
yeah, same guys last week. So why don't we go to move along and have a conversation with some others? Yes, really.
So you said I'm the same guy as the guy from last week.
You certainly sound like it. What do you think, Andrew?
It sounds like someone trying to get a little bit of a deeper voice, but the same inflections on certain words.
I agree, and I took notes.
All right, let's just move along then.
All right. We'll go over to John. I'll bring John in, and he can let me turn him up here. He was down. You can unmute yourself, John.
I already have. How you guys doing?
Doing all right, John, buddy. How are you doing, man?
Exhausted. I'm telling you, man, the work of a postal carrier is tough.
You're a postal carrier?
Yeah.
That's what he does. That's what Cameron does.
Right on.
Yeah.
And look,
that's why he's in good shape. He can keep working.
Yeah, but it looks like he probably walks a lot. I don't. I'm going to be driving a truck. So.
Okay, well, that's good.
Anyway. Hey, I came across a situation where somebody told me basically about the whole issue about Calvinism and how it's related with double predestination. And I've always thought that that's a straw man. And I mentioned that in one of the groups that I was in on Facebook. And they all said, no, that's not a straw man. that's actually accurate. So I was wondering, was I missing something there? I mean, double predestination is when somebody, when God predestines people to hell. Is that the true Calvinism stance?
There are a lot of Calvinists who hold to it, and I lean towards it.
Okay.
And
I mean, I have no problem with it, but I'm just kind of wondering what exactly is the official Calvinistic position.
well, you can be Calvinist, have different views on things. Like I'm a Calvinist who believes in the continuation of the gifts. Not all Calvinists do. Some Calvinists are dispensational, some are not. So you can have, what's the official? Well, you know, we would just say basically that that there's a variety of beliefs within Reformed theology that would allow people different views. But nevertheless, God does say in Proverbs 16:4, he makes all things, even the wicked, for the day of destruction. So that's what he says. That implies double predestination right there. You go to Romans 9:22. What if God, although willing to demonstrate his wrath and to make his power known, endured with much patience vessels of wrath prepared for destruction? Well, the implication is there that he prepared them for destruction. So we do have verses for that. 1 Peter 2:8. Jesus is a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense, for they stumble because they are disobedient to the word, and to this doom they were also appointed. Now, what does it mean they were appointed beforehand, or does it mean they were appointed because they are rejecting God? But it says a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense, and to this doom they were appointed. So it's a bit of a difficult thing to kind of easily get out, at least out of that verse. I don't use that verse for that very often, but since we're talking about, that's another verse that is kind of implied there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, double predestination, actually, it is the standard Calvinist stance, but it gets misunderstood. It doesn't mean, a lot of times it gets conflated with what's called equal ultimacy. So
right.
Double, from our standpoint, is just this. It is that God has elected a people, and by electing a people, he has passed over some. So he's predestined those to salvation, and because he's predestined these and passed over those, then the others are predestined to damnation. That doesn't mean that equal ultimacy would mean that the way that he predestines the elect, that he works in their lives, the Spirit comes and applies salvation, the regeneration, this and that. That on the other side of the coin, that he actively reprobates the non-elect, which is not that's a heretical stance. Equal ultimacy is heretical. So it's just double predestination. It's just that because God elects people and passes over the others, then he has predestined both.
Yeah, so it's somewhat of a logical conclusion that people come up to, right? Because, but the real thing that it's the starting point for people is that not neutral and not heaven. The starting point is, because of the sin nature, their starting point is deserving hell.
Yeah.
That's the starting point. And so the idea that people will have with double predestination is that if God elected some, he chose some to be redeemed, therefore, by definition, they would say he therefore, by not electing some, elected the others to be damned. That's basically the argument. And where it comes into play is people will say, okay, but then you have people who will say, but God can't tempt. And so they will use that verse, typically I've seen, to argue against it. I would not hold in double predestination in the sense where God selects some and says, okay, you're going to be damned, and then selects others and says, you're going to be elect. They're all damned, and he selects some to be elect.
Right.
Amen. No, that makes a lot more sense, Andrew. That makes much more sense. So then those who don't hold to like original sin, they're the ones who really have their theology really wonky.
Oh yeah.
Well, they would have a problem, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when people ask me about this, what I'll do is I'll say, well, what God absolutely does actively do is elect people to salvation. Then the question is, does he actively force people into damnation? Well, that's the question. Is there an active work or a passive work of God? He could actively fix it so they aren't saved, but by doctrine of total depravity, they already are not saved. So how could he forcibly, so to speak, or actively bring them to that place of not being saved? The only place in Scripture that I could find that would support that would be Jesus speaking in parables, so people will not be saved. And it seems to be in Mark 4:10-12, where he says that there seems to be an active choice there. But then again, what's the context? The context is Jesus is speaking with people, and since he's God in flesh, and people are he has the elect whom he's come to save, the ones given to him by the Father, John 6:37. Well, then, if that's the case, then if he were to tell people to be saved who were not elect, they'd have to be saved. So they're not elect, so he speaks in parables, so they won't get saved. And so you go, okay, wait a minute, how's that work? And so it can get a little complicated. And so on Tuesday, I lean towards a real positive, active double predestination. And on Thursday, I lean more towards a passive double predestination. And sometimes on Friday, I'm trying to decide which one again. And it's because the scriptures are not exactly clear, and how you define things, of course, can have an emphasis on which part you're going to take a look at. But equal ultimacy deals with the issue of God actively choosing, you're going to go to hell, I want you to go to hell. But if you have 5 people and you only choose 2 out of the 5, in a sense, you're choosing the other 3 not to be with you. But are you? And so it's just not easy. It's not an easy discussion.
Well, and I think part of the problem in the discussion is all of us here are creatures bound by time. We think within time frames, and God is not. He is eternal, and therefore he's outside of time. He can work within time. He's omniscient. We're not. We learn through observation, and this is a big thing. Everything that we learn through observation. God never learned anything. He knows everything. And there's a huge difference between those two. And we cannot comprehend that thinking. So what we try to do is, in our finite minds that are bound by time, that have to learn things, we end up in a position where we're trying to understand an infinite mind who's omniscient.
I tried that once.
How to work for it?
Yeah, I got down the infinite long trail. I got down about 3 feet, and then my brain went.
But I mean, that's really where a lot of this comes down. We are trying in our finite minds to comprehend the infinite, and we can't. And we explain it.
5-year-olds can.
That we try the best we can to explain these things, but a lot of times what happens is, in the explanation of the terms, people then draw conclusions from those explanations that may not have necessarily been there. I mean, Calvin never explained double predestination. Those were from his followers that argued for that. And it was a logical conclusion they came to, and understandably. But the question is, does the scripture support that? Well, I don't think so. It supports that he's in control of all things. It supports that, he's sovereign. But when we talk about it, we often talk about it as if God is observing us and reacting to what he observes, or that he is, bound by time, as if, in time I do this and then this happens. And so those things are things we have to think through to realize that that's where a lot of this problem ends up occurring from.
Right. Yeah, that's one thing I came across also, is if God is omniscient, then he would obviously know who goes to heaven and who goes to hell. If that's the case, then
It was not just an issue of him knowing who goes to hell, because that's implying, I'm writing on boxes.
Yeah.
That implies then that he's looking into the future to see what's going to happen.
Okay.
And this goes all the way back to the this goes all the way back to the charge against the Calvinists with the problem of evil, right? So a Calvinist would make the claim, we would make a claim called an asymmetry claim. So we would give God all the glory for everything good and none of the blame for anything bad. And that's where the charge stems from, which there are a number of different ways to answer that charge. But I think it's where it comes from. I myself don't have a problem with holding to double predestination when it's properly understood.
Mhm.
And I think that Matt was in the exact right place with the active versus passive. There's another way to explain it is the causation of God, that it's hyperphysical compared to our physical. So yeah, it's a problem that or a question that comes up quite often. There's been a lot of ink spilled over it.
Yeah, there has been. It's not an easy one. It's just not an easy one. And I don't want to sound like, hey, I can't solve it, so I'm just going to make it up. And I don't know what I'm talking about. No, it's just you get down to these discussions, and it can, like I said, on Tuesday I'm this way, on Thursday I'm that way. And what I mean is, you really think through these things, you're going to come up with some variables in them. How deeply you think about particular instances or definitions within it. But just like what he was saying, I agree. The active or passive issue of predestination of the non-elect.
Mhm.
We know that God is actively predestining the elect. Active. Does he need to actively unpredestine or reprobate the unbelievers? He doesn't need to.
No, not at all. Not at all. And it's actually it'll all work back to, if you go back far enough to it, to the claim of that determinism is incompatible with moral responsibility. So that's where it'll end up getting back to, because they're like, well, if God has determined that all of these people do X, Y, or Z, then there's no way that they can be held morally responsible, which is completely wrong.
Right.
That gets to the. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Chris, I enjoy your input. You're more educated about this stuff than I thought you were. I mean that in a good way, though, because it's not used to people nailing these things so well. So good for you. But
I've been in
yeah.
seminary for a little over 3 years now.
Yeah. Which seminary are you going? That's right. I forgot.
SBTS, Southern Baptist Theological.
Oh man. Well, close. Close.
Well, and I've done a lot of research into the whole determinism versus indeterminism argument, libertarian free will versus compatibilism. So I've really got a good solid base there.
Yeah,
That
and
kind of
from what we understand, he's now following after Leighton Flowers, and he's
No, you're not. Don't tell me, Chris, you're following for Leighton Flowers.
Who you been talking to, Andrew? Come on.
That would be bad.
I like Leighton. I've known Leighton. I've known and interacted with Leighton now for probably close to 8 years. So, a lot of people get on me, but
I just want to get Chris triggered.
I do enjoy talking to him, but I want him to see, because this whole deal with libertarian free will it really gets me going, because the indeterminist takes libertarian free will and they say that is just necessary for moral responsibility. And then when they go to argue against the compatibilist, they will say, since determinism is incompatible with libertarian free will, which it is, we'll agree with that. That means that compatibilism in a deterministic framework is wrong. But see, they beg the question from the outset, because that's the question, is what type of freedom is necessary for moral responsibility? And so they beg the question from the outset, and then they come with charges that include a lot of equivocations. And I've explained all this to Leighton, and actually to a few others, some philosophers, some that have some PhDs in philosophy. And I had some really good talks with them about that, but they just don't want to see it, even though the top proponents of libertarian free will admit that it's just assumed, right? It's an intuition, right? It's intuitive, and that's what they claim. But they claim that since we don't ascribe to that intuition, then our system must be wrong.
Well, let me ask you this, Chris. In John 5:19 and 30, I'll read them to you here in a second. Something Jesus says. But I ask people, did Jesus have free will? And they'll say yes. Okay, what kind? And they'll say, well, libertarian. Okay, great. Jesus says, truly, truly, I say to you, the Son of God can do nothing of himself unless it is something he sees the Father doing. For whatever the Father does, these things the Son does in like manner. So Jesus can do nothing of himself. And verse 30, I can do nothing on my own initiative. Wait a minute. If he had libertarian free will, he has to be able to do everything on his own initiative. So if Jesus has free will and it was libertarian, how then can it also be that he said, I can do nothing of my own initiative?
Right. That's actually an argument that Guillaume Bignon uses in his book, Excusing Sinners and Blaming God. If you haven't read that, Matt, that would be a really good pickup. It's probably the best money I've spent on a book in 5 years.
And what's the name of the book?
called "Excusing Sinners and Blaming God."
Oh, I think I've heard of that.
It's amazing. It really is.
Okay. See if we've already got it or not. Excusing God. No, excusing sinners, blaming God.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a play off of the Romans. The two questions that Paul anticipates in Romans, right? Is there unrighteousness in God, which would be blaming God? And then, well, if all do His will, then why does He find a fault, right? So He's excusing sinners. That's
I
the
did
play
buy it. I did buy it on Kindle.
It's excellent.
I
It's
love
really
Kindle.
excellent.
Yeah, I already have been reading through it. Jeez, you got so many. Oh.
So about that thing, Matt's getting old.
Look at all this stuff. I've already read through a lot of it. I got stuff highlighted.
Matt, what do you have for breakfast this morning?
Eggs. I had scrambled eggs, or 4 of them, with 2 pieces of toast buttered and a glass of water. And I sat next to the water cooler on the table on the far side next to the refrigerator. And I made Anique 2 eggs and a waffle, which I put butter in from her dish that was not contaminated with my butter because of wheat issues.
Bam.
Yeah.
Bam. Now ask me what I had for lunch.
What do you have for lunch, Matt?
4 pieces of pizza, which my wife ordered because the guys were here working, and she got man pizza. It had really nice chunks of sausage, with pepperoni, and I had like 7 or 8. I shouldn't have that many cinnamon roll things and a couple of garlic bread little nugget things with some more water.
So, hey Matt, check this out. This is what's just sent to me. Someone's going to send me this from me. You're going to ship this up to me. What exactly are we looking at right there?
That's Kittler.
Hey, Kittler's right here. Look at this. Since you got that right there. Look, hold on a sec. Our place is trash. We're moving. There he is. That's Kittler. Oh, look what he did.
Where's Kittler? I don't see him.
I don't see the cat anywhere.
Okay, hold on. There we go.
I see a mess. I don't see a cat.
It's a mess, all right. There he is. Right, see him?
There he is.
Oh,
the cat looks like Hitler. I was just told that that's coming my way. I should be receiving.
Why is he called Kittler? Because he has a mustache and a hair part like Hitler.
Yeah, and he makes the other cats bow down to him and go meow.
That's right. That is so true. Oh, I'm messing this up. Speaking of pictures and stuff like that, did you see the one of the baptism I did Saturday?
Yeah, with the Bigfoot.
I gotta find that because I meant to open the show with that. Where is that?
That was fun. It was so stupid.
You
it was a lot of fun.
Me, right? you got to get that up on screen and share that. That was great.
Okay, let's see if I can find it really fast.
I can't find that now.
I got it right there. Okay, share screen. Ready? Here we go. Share screen.
So I'll describe this while you put it up there. Okay, so that is from it says believe, and it's a picture of Matt Slick after he went into the water on a cold
43 degree water.
43 degree water, and if you look at the picture on Matt's face, it looks just like a picture of Bigfoot.
And my left arm, we were goofing around after the baptism. Oh, it was so cold. It really was. My legs stopped working for like an hour. We went over to Nathan's house, and we're all eating sandwiches and the whole bit and everything. And the guy I baptized, his girlfriend took that picture, and she just goes, "Hey," she didn't know she could. She goes, "I took it by accident," and she showed us, and we're just howling. Right? It's so stupid, right? And she thought it was funny, and and then you were there, right, Cameron? When
the one they were showing the picture on your phone, and I go, "Hey, look at this, Nathan."
Yeah, we can't hear Cameron.
But okay, sit here. Here, put this on.
We can't see him either.
Yeah, so we were at Nathan's house, and somebody showed me that picture. Like, oh, look at this hilarious picture where Matt's all cold. But she was kind of embarrassed that it might make Matt embarrassed, so she was going to delete it. I'm like, no, they got a picture of Bigfoot. And I showed it to Nathan, showed it to a couple others. And after Matt started laughing, one of the other guys sitting down there did the dual picture with Bigfoot and the Believe while we were sitting there.
Yeah.
That's good.
So, as Matt drops his microphone.
Yeah, but it was so stinking funny that, I mean, everybody was belly laughing. It was just one of those stupid fun things, you know.
Hey, look at Cameron doing what Matt can't do, picking up that box and just
that's right. He can't pick up right now. I mean, yeah, that's true.
All right.
And so, anyways, I just want to say thanks, guys, for the answers and all that. And Chris is definitely one of the guys who I handpicked for the council at the very beginning. So yeah, he is definitely someone who I cherish a lot when it comes to these kind of questions. Before I go, I'm going to just let everybody know I'm going to start the after show. What's that?
It sounds like Chris is coming more and more to my views on more things. Before you know it, he's going to be dispensational if he keeps studying.
Hey.
Not if Tyler Valick can.
If you want to become dispensational, just go to LDS.org.
Wow. I mean, that's not even like logically valid, but hey.
No, they're dispensationalists.
All right. I was going to point out that this is probably the only time where Andrew actually has more books than Matt.
No, that actually, and to this is that I have way more books. However, Matt will also admit that he has given away a lot of his books over the years. So,
no, you mean hardcover books. You have more books on Logos. That really doesn't kind of count.
Well, yeah, Logos, I totally have more than you. But you'll love this one, Matt. This was funny. So we're out at Shepherd's Conference, and we're sitting there, and a pastor was telling me his books in Logos, and so he was telling me he's like, yeah, I have like, I forget, it was like 6,000 books in Logos, and I just sat there and looked at him. And the other guys looked at me, and he realized there's something that was up. And looking at me, and I go, "Yeah, I have like 51,000." And he just was like, "What?" But no, I do have more books than Matt. It's just that Matt's given a bunch away. So
no, you hadn't even seen the stuff in the garage. I've got boxes of books in the garage, and I have shelves of books in the garage.
Oh, but you haven't seen my basement. And I got all my Kenneth Hagin and Kenneth Copeland.
Oh,
they're in the basement. So if there's a flood, like
yeah, but that doesn't count, Andrew.
Yeah, those aren't real books. I'm trying to get rid of all.
Wait.
I'm going to get rid of more
Matt
and more.
has on his shelf. It's all LDS stuff. He's got an entire bookcase just of LDS stuff, and it's all from their perspective. So come on, are you going to tell me that LDS is better than Kenneth Hagin and Kenneth Copeland? They're on the same level.
This is a book I've found recently on the was that next to the trash can, which someone missed it.
Hey, that's a perfect. Hey, Matt, that is a perfect book to level up a table.
Yeah. So the question is, holding up
there's not much substance to it.
What do they believe? It's good that he actually found it. You know.
Actually, we got a few on the shelf over there. By the way,
it really doesn't even look worn in.
That reminds me, guys. I got a new book out now.
That's right. You got to. You're supposed to mention that. Let's talk about your new devotional book. You have a 30-day devotional book that just came out this week, I think, right?
Yeah, you just said it. There you go.
Yeah,
that's it.
Sorry, I was traveling and forgot about it. So, we can get that on carm.org, I believe. Let me go check. Matt should know if we can get it on Carm. Where's the store?
Go to carm.org/30, and it'll take you down to the page, and then, or you go to Amazon and look up. I think it's on. Let me see. 30 days.
Carm.org/30.
See if it's there. If it's gone through there yet.
Devotion by Matt Slick.
Yes.
You can order that at carm.org/30. $10 for 10 of them. That's what comes in as default. So the price is $1 a book. Is that right, Matt?
Wow. I don't know. Ken set it up.
All right. It says get the new book from Carm, 30 days of devotion for a donation of less than $10. You can edit the quantity, but the default quantity is 10. So it's $1 a book. Hey, that's pretty good. So get 10 and give them away.
I don't know what they do to fix high earnings, but you better get it fixed.
Better hurry up before it changes.
Yeah. So talk us through that book. What are we going to learn in that book, Matt?
Devotion stuff.
Yeah, I knew that was coming. And how many days will it take?
Logically sound devotional.
How long will it take to get through that?
Depends how fast you read, but probably 30 days if you do one a day.
Look at what Cameron is doing. That is classic. For folks who are not able to watch, Cameron moved. He moved the box to be right behind Matt's head so that he could pull the tape and Matt could hear it at its loudest. That is very nice of Cameron. He's making sure that that Matt hears the tape.
That's right. Yeah, because I have to write on them. We have a little code.
Oh no, it's not for the writing. He did that. He was doing the tape further away before. He moved that box up close so that you could hear the full sound of that tape there going. So that's pretty good. So
yeah, that's J Dubs. Which one?
So I don't know if any of you guys who are here have any other questions. Okay. We got about 10 minutes left for the show, about 8 minutes left. If anyone has anything, if not,
I have one more question.
Wait, someone's talking, but I don't know who. Let me see.
I was just saying that I had.
There we go. Yeah. Train of thought. What's your name?
My name's Massimo.
It's what?
My real name. Massimo.
Massimo. And before you ask it, let me just give a quick shout out to Jason Manning, who just gave $10 for Cameron to sneak up behind Matt and tape his head. So
not happening. Not a good idea.
There it is. Someone gave $10 for you to sneak up behind Matt and tape the back of his head.
No, not happening.
Okay. So Masso, I mispronounced it. Give it to me again. Mastro. Okay.
What's that?
So what's your question?
I was just going to ask, and this is kind of related to the other question, but there might be a different answer, so that's why I'm asking. Why does doubt, why does doubt exist, and how would someone be able to handle
doubt exists because of our sin.
So doubt, is there any benefit to having doubts? Because when I look at the Bible, it doesn't seem like there's any benefit to having doubts.
Well, we could say there's a benefit to doubt, but doubt is because of our sin. But then when we doubt, we could make a choice to trust God anyway, even though we might doubt how things might work out. And so we're trusting him above our doubts. So then that wouldn't be able to occur unless we were having the actual issue of doubting. And then we could bring glory to him by saying, even though I doubt A, B, C, I'm going to trust you, Lord, to work through that. I don't know how it's going to happen. I have my doubts, but I'm going to trust you anyway. And so, those kind of things can happen.
I hear what you're saying. So you're saying that doubt would bring about more faith because they're.
It could. I'm just saying in that particular, thing, maybe that's a way to look at it, that it could be a good thing in that sense. Not saying it is, but
it's a possibility. I mean, there could be several reasons for doubt. Doubt could cause you to go and study and research and figure out answers.
Yeah, and
that would strengthen.
Your
thinking. So
another good idea. Yeah.
So it's really the question is, what do you do with the doubt? What do you do when you have some of the things that you bring up with and the struggles? Do you run away or do you embrace them and deal with them? And I think, scripture makes it clear we should come and reason together. And so that's what we should do. We shouldn't run away and turn our brain off. We should interact with it and ask, why are we having these doubts? Most of the people, at least for believers, when it comes to doubt with their salvation, it is most often because of sin. It's most often because there's sin in their life that is keeping them from wanting to read God's word, to pray. And because of that, they're not, they're their doubt is caused because of sin in their life. And really what they need to get rid of is the sin, and start thinking right. So.
Yeah. Yep. Good stuff, man.
So I hope that helps. We're gonna wrap up tonight. And so folks, if you've, I hope this has been, it's been kind of a lot of different things tonight. We've had a couple of trolls in tonight, but we got to watch Cameron do Matt's job. That's nice.
I appreciate that, Cameron. That's awesome. Keep up the good work.
Yeah, he's like got all your books gone.
Yeah, I'm going to help him here in a little bit if my back will let me.
Yeah, don't be dumb. Don't throw your back out more. So, so folks, some good sites for you. If you're watching this live in the YouTube chat, you see our friend Charlie, who puts out like probably about 1,000 different links to Carm. He's got them all. Charlie is like the Carm master. I think he knows Carm better than Matt himself.
He's getting there.
Yeah, he just knows where every article is on Carm and can just drop it in there. He's dropping in right now some information for folks who want to listen to Matt Slick Live, and you can listen to Matt Slick Live Monday through Friday from 6 to 7 Eastern time. You can get the details at carm.org. You can, if you so choose, subscribe to the podcast, Matt Slick Live. Just do a search for Matt Slick. It's hosted on Sermon Audio, and you can you can search for Christian Apologetics Research Ministry or Matt Slick, and that will come up. You can also subscribe to my podcast, Andrew Rappaport's Rap Report. There's 2 of them. There is a daily, which is Monday through Friday, 2 minutes long, and then there's a weekly that's usually about an hour long. We just got another super chat from Jason Manning. He says, "Thank you for the show. God bless, praise Jesus." So thank you, Jason, for that. I would say that for others who want to do super chats, I think there's a little $ button down at the bottom. That's how you do it. If you want to donate, and that donation goes to Carm. That doesn't go to Striving for Eternity. But some ways you can support both Matt and I, or really our ministries, you could support Carm at carm.org. And hit the donate button. It would be good to donate monthly, so that because kind of the bills come in monthly. You can go to strivingforeternity.org/donate and donate there. That goes right to Striving for Eternity. Both Carm and Striving for Eternity are 501c3 organizations. If you want to support us at our Patreon, you can go to patreon.com. If you look for Striving for Eternity, that will go to Striving for Eternity. But if you would like to support Matt personally, not Carm, but Matt, you can search for Matt Slick on Patreon, and that goes directly to Matt. That is not tax deductible because Matt personally is not a 501c3. But if you want to support him, you could go there. So next week, I think we don't have anything out of the ordinary next week. Trying to set up some debates, but some people say they want to debate and then they don't set it up. So we will see.
I challenged some people to come in. One guy said he could destroy me in Catholicism. I said, good, come on in. And haven't seen him. So, we'll see.
I could destroy you with this tape.
Carmen's, what was that he said?
He could destroy me with a tape.
He could.
Yeah, he could.
Yes.
My goodness, look at that. That is so strange. Oh, man.
Yeah, it's looking naked. Your office is looking naked.
Yeah.
All right. So
all right, I'm going to get going too.
Until next week, just remember to strive to make today an eternal day for the glory of God.